The massive alien spacecraft hung silently above Earth's atmosphere, its metallic surface gleaming under the distant starlight. Commander Vrel adjusted the massive viewing screen, zooming in on the blue-green planet that seemed so insignificant in the vast cosmic landscape. J. Park sat in a small monitoring station deep within a hidden underground military research facility. His fingers traced the edges of an old photograph, his grandfather who had served in the military decades ago. Something about the way his grandfather's eyes looked told stories of resilience and unexpected strength. The alien communication systems began scanning Earth's frequencies. They expected primitive radio signals, basic technological chatter. Instead, they found something more complex. Encrypted networks, quantum communication channels, and data streams that seemed to dance and shift in patterns that defied standard galactic communication protocols. "Analyze these signals," Vrel commanded his lead analyst, Korik. The aliens' tentacle-like appendages moved swiftly across holographic interfaces, attempting to break down the human communication patterns. What they didn't know was that J. Park and his team were deliberately playing a game. Each signal was a carefully crafted puzzle, designed to confuse and misdirect. Humanity had been preparing for potential first contact for decades, learning from scientific theories, science fiction, and strategic war games. The underground facility buzzed with controlled excitement. Monitors displayed global communication, networks, satellite tracking systems, and advanced quantum communication arrays. Young scientists and military strategists worked with a precision that suggested they had been training for this moment their entire lives. Hana Kim, a brilliant quantum physicist, watched the alien scans with a slight smile. She had spent years developing communication encryption that would appear random to external observers. Each data packet was a potential trap, each signal a carefully constructed illusion. Outside the facility, the world continued its normal rhythm. People walked city streets, worked in offices, drove cars, completely unaware that first contact was happening right above their heads. The normality was itself a form of camouflage. Commander Vrel's initial reports back to the Galactic Confederation were dismissive. Primitive planet, technologically underdeveloped, potential resource extraction candidate, he noted in his standard report. His species had encountered hundreds of developing civilizations. They had a standard protocol: observe, assess, potentially colonize, but something felt different about Earth. The alien scanning systems kept encountering unexpected resistance. Data streams that seemed simple suddenly transformed. Communication channels that appeared open would suddenly close, redirecting in ways that made no logical sense to the alien intelligence. J. Park watched the alien ship through a series of high-resolution satellite feeds. His team had already mapped every potential movement, every possible communication strategy the aliens might employ. They weren't just preparing, they were setting an elaborate stage. "Prepare Communication Protocol Alpha," Jay whispered into his communication device. Across the global network, specialized teams began mobilizing, not with weapons but with information. Carefully constructed data packets that would challenge and confuse any external intelligence attempting to understand human communication. The alien ship continued its silent observation, unaware that it was being studied just as carefully as it was studying Earth. Every scan, every communication attempt was being recorded, analyzed, and potentially manipulated by human intelligence teams. Korik, the alien analyst, began to feel something unusual, a sense of uncertainty. In all his years of planetary assessments, he had never encountered a civilization that seemed to play with information the way humans did. It was almost like the entire planet was one massive living intelligence network. As hours passed, the alien ship remained stationary. Commander Vrel grew increasingly frustrated. The data they were collecting made no sense. It was as if the entire planet was deliberately obscuring its true capabilities. What the aliens didn't understand was that humans had been preparing for this moment for generations. Not through military might, but through intelligence, adaptability, and an almost playful approach to technological challenge. The first contact was happening, and humanity was definitely not going to be a passive participant. In the underground facility, J. Park allowed himself a small smile. The game was just beginning. The alien communication systems began to malfunction in ways that defied their advanced technological understanding. What seemed like simple data streams from Earth were actually complex adaptive algorithms that changed faster than the aliens could process. Hana Kim sat in her research lab, surrounded by quantum computing devices that pulsed with soft blue light. Her fingers moved quickly across holographic interfaces, creating communication encryption methods that would make standard alien scanning techniques completely useless. Commander Vrel's frustration grew with each passing hour. The human communication networks were unlike anything in galactic records. Where other developing civilizations had predictable technological patterns, humans seemed to operate on pure unpredictability. Seung Choi, a brilliant aerospace engineer, had been developing a unique communication protocol. It wasn't just about sending messages. It was about creating a living, breathing information ecosystem that could adapt and change in milliseconds. Each data packet was like a living organism, capable of changing its core structure when detected. Throw. Alien analysis team found themselves facing a bizarre challenge. Every time they thought they understood a human communication pattern, it would suddenly shift. Quantum encryption mixed with artificial intelligence algorithms created a defense system that seemed almost alive. In a small research facility in South Korea, a team of young scientists were turning conventional communication theory upside down. They weren't just defending against alien scans, they were actively playing with the incoming signals, creating elaborate digital labyrinths that would confuse any external intelligence. J. Park watched the global network of communication systems. What looked like random data streams to the aliens were actually carefully choreographed information dances. Each signal told a story, but not the story the aliens expected to hear. The alien scanning systems began to overheat. Their advanced technology, which had mapped hundreds of planetary communication networks, suddenly found itself struggling against human creativity. It was like trying to catch water with a net. The more they tried to grasp, the more the information slipped away. Korik, the lead alien analyst, started to feel something close to fear. Humans weren't just defending themselves. They were actively toying with the alien communication systems. Each scan was met with a response that was both precise and completely unexpected. Daye Yi, a military tactical expert, had developed a series of communication strategies that turned information into a weapon. False signals were sent out, creating elaborate illusions of human technological capabilities. Some signals suggested advanced weaponry, others implied primitive systems. The confusion was deliberate and brilliant. The global human communication network was transforming. What the aliens saw as a weakness, the diversity of human technological approaches, was actually a massive strength. While other civilizations followed strict technological development paths, humans jumped between technologies like creative dancers. Satellite systems began to play their own part in the elaborate game. Commercial communication satellites were suddenly reprogrammed, creating additional layers of complexity to the human communication network. What looked like simple broadcasting systems became advanced encryption platforms. Commander Vrel's frustration reached a breaking point. The initial assessment of humans as a primitive species was looking completely wrong. These were not a developing civilization. These were technological shapeshifters who seemed to understand communication as an art form. Hana Kim allowed herself a small smile. Each quantum algorithm was a puzzle, each encryption method a work of art. The aliens were trying to understand human communication using tools that were already obsolete. The alien ship continued its silent observation, but now with a growing sense of uncertainty. Every scan, every attempt to understand the human communication network, was met with a response that was both intelligent and deliberately confusing. What the aliens didn't realize was that humans had been preparing for potential external threats for generations. Not through traditional military might, but through intelligence, creativity, and an ability to turn information itself into a defensive weapon. In research facilities, military communication centers, and university labs around the world, teams, were working together. They weren't just defending against an alien scan. They were showing the galaxy something fundamental about human potential. J. Park looked at the global communication network and knew something important was happening. Humanity was writing a new chapter in its relationship with the universe, and it would be written on its own terms. The alien research team struggled to understand human cultural complexity. What they saw was not a simple civilization, but a living, breathing network of diverse interactions that defied standard galactic classification. Sung Choi watched the alien scanning systems with a knowing smile. Humans weren't just a species. They were a complex ecosystem of ideas, cultures, and unexpected connections. Their strength wasn't in uniformity, but in their ability to adapt and transform. Commander Vrel's communication logs became increasingly confused. Human cultural patterns shifted faster than any technology could track. One moment, a communication network seemed traditional and predictable. The next, it would explode with creativity and unexpected solutions. In a small coffee shop in Seoul, a group of young programmers were doing something extraordinary. They were creating communication algorithms that mimicked human social interactions, complex, unpredictable, filled with nuance and emotion that no standard computer system could understand. Dai Yi had developed a psychological warfare strategy that was more art than military technique. Instead of direct confrontation, humans were creating information networks that could adapt, change, and respond in ways that seemed almost alive. The alien analysts found themselves facing a fundamental problem. Human communication wasn't just about sending messages. It was about creating connections, telling stories, sharing experiences in ways that defied logical analysis. Cultural diversity became a weapon. Where other civilizations sought uniformity, humans celebrated difference. Each community, each cultural group brought unique problem-solving approaches. What looked like chaos to the aliens was actually a complex adaptive system. Hana Kim's research team explored the boundaries between technology and human emotion. They developed communication systems that could understand context, read between the lines, detect subtle emotional nuances that no alien technology could comprehend. The global human network wasn't a single system. It was millions of interconnected systems, each with its own unique character. Social media platforms, scientific research networks, artistic communities, all working together in ways that seemed impossible to external observers. J. Park understood the true nature of human potential. Their strength wasn't in military might or technological superiority, but in their ability to connect, adapt, and create unexpected solutions. Alien scanning systems detected something bizarre. Music from different cultures, art forms that challenged traditional understanding, communication styles that changed with every interaction. Humans didn't just communicate, they performed complex cultural dances that shifted with every moment. In universities, research centers, and community spaces around the world, people were doing something remarkable. They were turning cultural diversity into a form of collective intelligence. Each different perspective became a potential solution to complex problems. The alien research team found themselves overwhelmed. Human information networks weren't linear. They were three-dimensional, constantly changing, filled with layers of meaning that went far beyond simple communication. Sung Choi's team developed communication algorithms that could understand cultural context. An emotional message from a Brazilian community could be perfectly understood by a research team in Japan, translated not just through language, but through shared human experience. Commander Vrel's initial reports of a primitive civilization now seemed laughably incorrect. These weren't simple beings. They were a complex, adaptive species that turned diversity into strength. The global human network began to show its true potential. Scientific researchers in different countries started solving problems collaboratively. Artists created works that transcended cultural boundaries. Communities that seemed different found unexpected connections. Dai Yi's psychological strategies revealed something fundamental about human nature. Their ability to understand multiple perspectives, to empathize, to find creative solutions. These were weapons more powerful than any traditional military technology. Hana Kim watched the alien, scanning systems with fascination. Humans were writing a new chapter in galactic understanding. They weren't just a species to be categorized. They were a living, breathing example of how complexity could become strength. The alien ship continued its observation, but now with a growing sense of respect. Humans weren't just surviving. They were transforming the very understanding of what an intelligent species could be. J. Park knew they were showing the galaxy something important. Humanity's true power wasn't in its technology or military might, but in its ability to connect, adapt, and create in ways that defied traditional understanding. The cultural complexity of humans was becoming their most powerful weapon. The first alien attack came without warning. Massive energy weapons descended from the enormous spacecraft, targeting what they believed were critical human infrastructure points. But humans were not going to be easy targets. J. Park watched the initial assault from the underground command center. His team had been preparing for this moment for years. Every potential attack scenario had been analyzed, simulated, and prepared for with meticulous detail. Shung Choi's aerospace defense systems kicked into action. Commercial drones suddenly transformed into intelligent defensive units. Satellite networks redirected their systems, creating a complex shield that absorbed and reflected alien weapon signatures. The alien invasion force expected a quick victory. Their initial scans suggested human defenses would collapse within minutes. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that changed battlefield rules in real time. Dai Yi had developed a tactical approach that defied traditional military strategy. Instead of direct confrontation, human defenders used the planet itself as a weapon. Urban landscapes became adaptive combat zones. Every building, every communication network, every technological system became a potential defensive tool. Hana Kim's quantum communication systems created impossible-to-penetrate defense networks. Alien weapon systems found their signals redirected, their targeting systems confused by complex adaptive algorithms that changed faster than light could travel. The first wave of alien ground troops discovered something terrifying. Humans didn't fight like any species they had encountered before. Where other civilizations would panic, humans adapted. City streets became complex battlegrounds where every civilian was a potential strategic asset. Commercial technologies became weapons. Solar panels transformed into energy disruption systems. Transportation networks became rapid deployment platforms. Communication systems turned into complex intelligence-gathering networks that anticipated alien movements before they happened. Commander Vrel watched in growing horror as human defenders turned the entire planet into a living, breathing defensive organism. Their attack wasn't just military, it was a complete ecological and technological response that defied all standard invasion protocols. J. Park's team had prepared something extraordinary. Global communication networks weren't just information systems. They were now complex battle coordination platforms. A farmer in South Korea could provide tactical information to a defense team in Brazil in milliseconds. The alien weapon systems began to fail. Every attack was met with a response that was both precise and completely unexpected. Humans weren't just defending, they were actively turning the invasion into a complex strategic game. Seung Choi's aerospace teams launched a counterattack that shocked the alien invasion force. Repurposed communication satellites became weapon platforms. Commercial rocket systems were transformed into defensive missile networks. The entire planet's technological infrastructure became a weapon. Dai Yi's psychological warfare strategies reached their peak. Alien communication networks were flooded with complex, confusing signals. Some messages suggested massive human weapon capabilities, others implied complete vulnerability. The psychological confusion became a weapon more powerful than any physical defense. The global human response was unlike anything in galactic military records. Where other species would have a centralized defense system, humans created a distributed network of resistance. Every city, every community became a potential defensive unit. Hana Kim's quantum communication systems turned the entire planet into a single living intelligence network. Alien weapon signatures were not just blocked. They were studied, analyzed, and turned against their original creators. Commander Vrel realized they had made a critical mistake. Humans were not a primitive species to be conquered. They were a complex, adaptive civilization that could turn any technological system into a potential weapon. The invasion that was supposed to take hours was now turning into a complex, unpredictable conflict. Humans weren't just defending, they were actively reshaping the very concept of planetary defense. J. Park watched the Global Defense Network with a sense of calm determination. This wasn't just a battle for survival, it was a demonstration of human potential. Every moment showed the galaxy something fundamental about humanity's true capabilities. The alien invasion force found themselves fighting an enemy that wasn't just defending. They were transforming the very nature of conflict itself. Human civilization was writing a new chapter in galactic history, and they were doing it on their own terms. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as reports of the human resistance spread across communication networks. What was supposed to be a simple planetary conquest had turned into a complete reimagining of interstellar conflict. Commander Vrel's damaged spacecraft limped back to the Galactic Confederation's central communication hub. His report was unlike any previous invasion assessment. Humans were not just a species to be categorized. They were a fundamental threat to everything the Confederation understood about intelligent life. J. Park stood on the observation deck of the Global Defense Center. The battle was over. But something more important was beginning. Humanity had just demonstrated its true potential to the universe. Communication networks across alien civilizations began sharing the impossible story. A small planetary species had not just defended itself, it had completely transformed the concept of planetary resistance. Every transmission carried a mixture of fear, respect, and absolute disbelief. Hana Kim's research teams were already analyzing the technological developments from the conflict. What had begun as a defensive strategy had produced breakthrough technologies that would change scientific understanding forever. Quantum communication systems, adaptive defense networks, psychological warfare algorithms, each was a potential revolution in galactic technology. The Galactic Confederation's Central Council convened an emergency session. Their initial classification of humans as a developing species now seemed laughably incorrect. These were not simple beings to be conquered or absorbed. They were a complex, adaptive civilization that could reshape entire technological paradigms. Seong. Choi's aerospace research teams began documenting the conflict. Every technological adaptation, every unexpected defense strategy became a case study. Universities and research centers around the world were already preparing to share their discoveries. With the global scientific community, alien intelligence networks struggled to understand human complexity. Their scanning systems had detected something unprecedented, a species that didn't just adapt, but transformed entire technological systems in real time. Humans had turned their greatest weakness, their technological diversity, into their most powerful strength. Daeyi's psychological warfare strategies became a subject of intense study across multiple alien civilizations. How could a single species develop communication systems that could so completely confuse and redirect advanced technological networks? The first official Galactic Confederation transmission about humans was simple but profound. Humans are not to be underestimated. They represent a fundamental shift in our understanding of intelligent life. Research centers across alien worlds began studying human communication, technological, and cultural systems. What had seemed like chaos was now recognized as a complex, adaptive intelligence that defied traditional classification. J. Park understood that this was more than a military victory. Humanity had just demonstrated its true potential to the universe. They weren't just surviving, they were showing what an intelligent species could become. Communication networks began sharing stories of human resistance. How commercial drones became defense systems. How scientific research teams turned technological challenges into innovative solutions. How entire communities worked together in ways that defied traditional understanding. The alien invasion force that returned told stories that seemed impossible. Cities that became living defense networks. Communication systems that could anticipate and redirect attacks before they happened. A species that turned its entire planetary infrastructure into a complex, adaptive defense mechanism. Hannah Kim's quantum communication research became the most studied scientific breakthrough in galactic history. Humans had shown that technology was more than just a tool. It could be a living, adaptive system that reflected cultural complexity. The Galactic Confederation's warning message began to spread. Approach humans with respect. They are not a species to be conquered or categorized. They are a fundamental force of adaptive intelligence. Seung Choi looked at the global communication networks and saw something beautiful. What had begun as a defensive struggle had become a demonstration of human potential. Every challenge had been met with creativity, adaptability, and an unexpected approach to problem solving. Alien civilizations began to understand something fundamental. Humans were not just another species to be studied. They were a living example of how intelligence could transform, adapt, and create in ways that defied traditional understanding.